Kade Maddock, welcome to the Tricer podcast.
Thank
How
you.
you doing, dude?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited.
Yeah, you got some. You have a couple bucks on your wall. You guys kill bucks over there?
Yeah, we've got a bunch actually. These are all from Mexico. That's what I've done since I was a little kid. Is go down mostly family when I was younger, but started to turn it into a business and mostly Coues deer, but deer in Mexico.
Okay, what's the business called now?
We're Mad Hunts, Madd Hunts. Our last name's Maddock, so it just kind of going with that, I guess. But yeah, we got for many years going down there personally, but this is our first year doing it, selling tags, and we done really well so far. But
Yeah, three of us are coming down to hunt with you in January, and if I shoot any of those deer on your wall, I'm changing the name to Happy Hunts because I am not gonna,
yeah,
I am not going to be mad because those are some big old bucks, dude.
yeah, we've had a lot of fun, mostly trail cameras and sit in water, which can be really difficult, but that's what we sort of have learned to specialize in, is killing deer off of water. And we run over 150 to 200 trail cameras, and that's how we enjoy doing it.
So if you're not watching this right now, you guys are hunting Coues deer. You guys have a Coues deer bug like nothing I've ever
Mhm.
seen before. You guys just I don't even know if you would even shoot a mule deer. Do you ever
Yeah,
hunt mule deer?
so we hunt mule deer a little bit. We've got mule deer tags down in Mexico as well. Where you'll be hunting with us, that ranch does not have mule deer. Um, Mule deer are a lot of fun. Elk are a lot of fun. We've got all of that on the walls, throughout the house, and other rest of our family and stuff. But Coues deer are just there's something about them, and not a lot of people are fortunate enough to be able to hunt them just because of their geographic location. But Coues deer they're phenomenal animals. I've never once have I ever heard a Coues deer before I've seen it. They're just quiet and sleek, and they're tough to hunt, but they're absolutely amazing and my favorite by far.
Yeah, I would agree. They are my favorite deer to hunt, hands down. Have you ever heard a Coues deer scream?
I'm not sure that I have.
So I was on a hunt down there by the border in Arizona,
Mhm.
and I came over this ridge, and I put myself between a fawn and a mama doe, and I
Mhm.
swear they scream like a raptor, like a it
Yeah.
sounds like a raptor from Jurassic Park. It's the only time I've ever heard it because
Mhm.
they are quiet. I mean, often you walk and all of a sudden you look and there's a Coues deer standing right there.
Yeah.
There's quiet deer. Um, Often you don't see them until their tail's big old white flag running away from you. But I
Yeah.
have heard them once, and that's the only time I ever heard them do that. I heard them scream like a raptor because I was
That's super
in
cool,
between
actually.
mom and baby. So that was a pretty cool experience. No one else was there, but you gotta trust me on that one.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
happened.
we've heard some of the water that we sit down in Mexico is super close. The second Coues buck I actually shot, I shot him at like 9 yards with a 300 rum, and I was like 13 or 14, and super cool, be able to do that. It was way overkill. I mean, long range rifle at that distance was kind of crazy, but he when he picked his head up, you could hear the water dripping off of his mouth, but
Oh
every
man.
every 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 step you couldn't hear it, and you could hear it. Just they're absolutely silent, unless I guess you get between a mom and a fawn.
That is awesome. I'm going to be shooting a 260 when I go down. I'm not bringing anything big because small
Yeah.
deer, small caliber. That's kind of my thing with Coues
Yeah.
deer. I shoot 260 at those things.
Yeah, I personally at this point I'll be having a 280 Ackley improved. That's what I'll be running this year.
That's what I'm running on my elk hunt this year. It's my favorite. But my favorite caliber is probably 260, but 280 is up there now too. I love 280, and I'm actually switching over to a lighter bullet. I was shooting 175 grain Burger in that gun, and it's ripping with RL26. I'm shooting like 2,900 feet per second or something, 2,950. But I'm switching over to 140 grain Hammer Hunter, or Elite Hammer, one of those two. It's the 140, so we're going to be just sending those things like 300 feet per second. So it could possibly be a round that I'm shooting at Coues this year too. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I love 280 is an awesome caliber. If anyone doesn't know what 280 is, it's a 30-06 neck down to a 7mm, and it's a 280 Ackley improved, so it's the shoulders improved on it, so you get a little more powder in there, and it's just if you don't like heavy recoil guns, like I don't really like big recoiling guns, I like the lighter stuff. It's an awesome caliber, and it shoots darn near the same as a 7mm rim mag.
Yeah, phenomenal gun. I love mine. It's probably one of my favorites. My brother, he's shooting a 28 Nosler, which is, I mean, kind of similar, but not at the same time. It's got a lot more powder behind it. You can shoot heavier bullets with it, but I kind of like, I don't know, it's tough. We shoot a bunch of different rounds down there between all of us, and we kind of argue over which one's better all the time. But
well, if you're shooting 280 Ackley, my father-in-law shooting 280 Ackley, I should bring my 280 Ackley, honestly, because that way all three of us have the same gun.
Yeah,
it would kind of make it good for if something goes wrong, I could, give you a round or something,
Yeah, absolutely.
I once hunted with somebody who was shooting a 6.5 284 Coues deer, and this guy never misses. He's the best shot I know, and I swear he missed 7 times within 3 days at some bucks, and he had
That's
2
tough.
rounds. He only had like 9 rounds. Those are small deer, man, and it just wasn't a good weekend for him.
Yeah.
And he had 2 rounds left, and I told him, like, if you could borrow my gun. He said, if I can't kill it with these last 2 rounds, I'm not going home with the deer. and because you can't buy those rounds 6.5 284 anywhere. And I ended up going after a buck and then shooting a different buck going after that buck. It's like 2 miles away. This other buck popped up. I shoot that buck, and I started gutting it. I'm like, hey, let's just gut this deer and hang it from a tree, and then let's go after the other buck, because that other buck's like a mile away. And then we went there, went over, like it was like 3 canyons, and got up on him, and he freaking hammered that deer like 280 yards or something, 290 yards, and just dropped him in his tracks and redeemed himself with 1 round left. Awesome. We went home. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, so I've learned that I always bring 50 rounds with me now. Because when I go out of state, because that way if something goes wrong, I don't bring 50 rounds in my pack. I typically have 10 rounds in my pack, but I have them in the truck, because if something goes wrong, I have them there. Because I shoot, like I said, 260 and 280, which is not a common caliber. You can't pick up at Walmart. That's one of the issues with those calibers.
It's tough to find for sure. Yeah. I remember my dad, there's a buck that we hunted. The ranch that we hunt in Mexico is very little glassing. And my dad had been after this buck for a couple of years, really hard to kill. It's actually this buck on the end that you can't really see. I turn the camera, you can see this top one here. That buck has really, really long beams. He's got like a 20 and a 21 inch beam. I believe I could be wrong, and my dad's gonna, but that buck, he had this buck at like 400 yards or 300 yards, but when he dialed it for 100 yards short. And so he shot this buck, and when he shot him, he put it like 3 or 4 inches just low. And so instead of going right through his shoulder, it went right below, just through his leg. Didn't break nothing. It was, it was fine. The deer ran off, and he comes back and hunts this same buck. That was in December, and he comes back in the middle of January, just like a month later, and he gets this buck in almost the same spot, cranks it. And so he ended up shooting this buck twice, like a month apart. It was just really, really funny. Awesome. And so we give him a lot of crap for that, but it's a good time.
So, tell me about you. How'd you get into hunting? Tell me about your first deer.
So my dad is a big hunter. He's hunted since before I was born, and he's really the way and the reason that I got into hunting. He when I was little, I'd go hunting with him, and I'd tag along, and as a 5 6 year old little kid, be worthless, just really slowing him down more than anything. But I was having an absolute blast, and just growing up, what we did and what we always looked forward to was going hunting. Turning 10, which is how old you got to be in Arizona to hunt. Hunt big game at least. We put in. I drew a tag. It was 17B, my first ever hunt, and we were able to get out, and we glassed up some big deer, but I was still young, and that would have been a real tough hike trying to get in there and get them killed. There's a spike that we ended up getting at like 40 yards last light the first night, and he just stood there, and we were on the quad. I was on the back, and of course the rifle was absolutely buried under everything, and so my dad got off and took the pack off, took the other pack off, took the bags off and sleeping bags and all this stuff, gets to the rifle, and this little spike just stands there for, I mean, legit like 2 minutes,
They're
while we
so
get
dumb.
everything set
They're
up.
so dumb.
And, I, at the
Oh,
time, for a 10-year-old little kid, it didn't matter if that buck was, a little spike, or if it was a 200-inch, monster. And I cranked it and was absolutely ecstatic. It was the greatest achievement I had done, at that time in my life. And so I, pretty much from there, a couple years later, my dad takes us down to Mexico. Um, first year two down there, we weren't hunting. My dad was hunting, um, but he picks up this ranch, and it was the first time that he'd ever had our own ranch. He'd hunted other ranches before with some other outfitters and things like that, but he wanted his own ranch that he could manage, and he could run however he wanted to. He wanted to chase whatever deer he wanted, and not what deer the outfitter decided. And so we went down there, started hunting it, and after a couple of years, we were able. He started allowing us to shoot some of these deer, and get more and more into it, and it just from there progressed into what it is now, and it's my absolute favorite thing to do. So.
okay. What does Mexico look like? I mean, like going down to Mexico, you're not. It's not Sonora, right? It's where would you consider where you guys are going down?
So it's Sonora.
It is
So
Sonora.
we're
Okay.
we're yeah. So we're all we've got a bunch of ranches. Where we'll be going with you, where you'll be coming with us is a ranch. It's about an hour south of Hermosillo. Hermosillo is like 3 hours ish south of the border, south of Nogales, and
So it's like a
Hermosillo
four
is
hour drive, 4 hour drive down
yeah,
once you cross.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so everything for the most part is pretty centered around Hermosillo. Um, it's just when a lot of people are concerned with like oh the cartels, oh there's Mexico, there's when people first talk about it, it's a lot of people get nervous. We've never had any issues, but everybody's my cousin has a friend that knew a guy that he went down to Mexico
Yeah.
and got beat up, and everybody knows somebody like that. And we've never had any issues. However, we do know that the closer to the border you are, then there's more issues. So we like to be more southern, and we like desert ranches as well. So desert ranches, there's not quite as many deer, but I believe that there's bigger deer on desert ranches. There's a better caliber of deer. a lot of people don't want to hunt them. So those ranches typically are more southern as well. So we try to
Is that
stay within
because
that.
like where you guys are hunting, there's not, it's more sitting water. People want a glass and treat it more like a Western
Yeah.
hunt. Is that why? Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple different reasons. So one, yeah, it's like sitting water. And people can say what they want, but when you got to sit in this little ground blind and it's, you're, few feet by few feet box, and you got to sit there from sun up to sundown, and you got to be quiet the entire time and focus to make sure that a deer does not come in and you miss it. And so it's like sometimes I've sat for 14 hours at a time, for 10 days in a row, and it's really, really difficult to do that. If a lot of people, a lot of people can't do it, and you'll hear guys that, oh, that's easy. You're just sitting in a chair, and then they come down there and they try it, and they don't want to anymore. It's a lot easier mentally for a lot of people to glass. There's a lot less deer, and so like I hunted a couple of years ago for a buck that my dad actually killed this last year. This buck's giant. It ended up grossing at 129 and change, and its net score was 125 and change as a typical buck. And this buck, while I was sitting for it, I sat for it in that for the duration, the majority of the January hunt, and I went. Sometimes I'd go a day or two without seeing a deer at all. And that's really hard for people. On the mountain ranches, you can go and see 100 deer in a day. And on the desert ranches, you might not see a single deer for 2 or 3 days. That's really difficult for some people as well.
Yeah. Well, I know I talked to your dad, and he basically told me if you shoot a deer under 100 inches, you're probably not going to bite it back. He told me
Yeah.
if you're willing to sit water for 10 days, you should have opportunity to big buck. But you have to be
Yeah.
willing to do it. And when someone who has as much
Yeah.
experience as your dad and you have done this for so long, and they tell me that, I say, people wait a lifetime to shoot a 129-inch deer. If I have to sit there for 10
Yeah.
days, I don't think I'm going to shoot that caliber of deer. I'm not saying that, but if you have to sit,
Yeah.
to shoot even a 100-inch buck, if you have to sit there for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days to shoot a 100-inch buck,
Mhm.
people wait a lifetime to get that chance. So why not take
Yeah.
that sit and do
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a lot of guys that come down there, and we'll get guys that come down there, and day one they're down there and they crank like a 60, 70-inch buck. And that's just a not a good thing to do. That's some of these bucks can get to that awesome 110 plus caliber of deer, and that's what we try to let them get to. We try to let the deer mature, and when they mature, they're able to get to this caliber of deer that you look at and it's a no brainer that I'm going to shoot that buck. This last year, I passed a buck 3 days in a row at less than 100 yards, less than 50 yards, with a rifle. That we're guessing, 105 to 108, because he's not a mature buck. And he's actually this 129-inch deer that we killed the 2 years before. He looks really, really similar to him, and so that buck that's 129, if we'd have shot him 2 years before and he's 105 to 110, somewhere in that window, well, then, you just killed that, S tier animal before he gets there. And that's what a lot of people struggle with, is letting deer get to that amazing caliber.
So get me excited. We've had like the craziest rain ever.
Yeah.
How big have you guys looked at the cameras yet? How big are these bucks? Are they going to be giants?
So unfortunately, we have tried running cameras year round. The cameras, when you're running like 200 cameras, the heat down there fries them. It's
Okay.
miserably bad for the cameras. So we're going to go down here in November, and November we're going to set the cameras. And so between November and December, and the December hunt to January, that's when we gain all of our information on these on these deer typically. So
All right, so
nice.
keep going. I'm sorry. So the rain, you can't run the camera, so you don't know how big the deer are yet.
Yeah, and so that's what's tough is we go down, and in a span of 3 or 4 days. Historically, it's mostly been three, but occasionally on a year we'll take a fourth day, and we'll set all of the cameras. And so we're running around these ranches, and it's a lot of ground that we're covering to be able to set all of these cameras in just a matter of a couple days, and then we run them. And while we're hunting down there, we got to manage all of these cameras. And so in talking to people and out of everybody that we know of, but we firmly believe that we have the best collection of Coues deer trail camera pictures out of anybody. We've got terabytes worth of trail camera pictures going back years, and some of the stuff we save isn't necessarily just Coues deer. I mean, we've got a video of a lion killing a deer off of water. We've got pictures and video of jaguar down there. So we've
Have
got
you ever
some
seen
other
the
stuff as
jaguars
well.
in person?
I've never seen them in person. Nobody yet has ever seen them in person. We get every year or two, we get pictures of them. We've got some video of them off of truck cameras, but we've yet to see one in person. They're really nocturnal, but we're able to occasionally. You're able to get some pictures of them.
I know how much bigger are the jaguar than a lion? Much bigger, right?
Significantly bigger. I don't know a whole lot about like cats, and I couldn't tell you. I could tell you, oh, that's a really big mountain lion, or that's a small lion, but I'm not an expert. But the jaguar that we've seen are significantly bigger for sure.
Now, down there, I know jaguars are protected, obviously. Are lions protected
Yeah.
as well?
So they're not protected. There's a way. It's sort of complicated. It's a difficult process. Sometimes it's not even a guaranteed process, but you can get tags for them under certain circumstances. But for the
Or the
most part, you can't
lions?
really shoot them. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. I was
But
just
for the
curious.
most
I know.
part,
I would think the hounds would be going down there going crazy if you can hunt lions.
yeah. There's a lot of guys that want to. We've had guys try it before, and it's difficult. It's super super thick down there. It's just a lot of places you can't walk. Trying to run dogs through these areas, and it can be really challenging for sure.
Probably nowhere to tree them, I guess, huh? Because
Yeah, that's a difficulty as well. It's
it's
pretty
just like
flat.
thick. It's like thick mesquite. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean mesquite. Just we off. Me and my brothers joke that everything in Mexico wants to kill you.
Yeah,
And so every
hundred
single
percent.
bush, tree, everything has these.
Choyas.
I mean, yeah, just this thick. I mean, every tree has thick, nasty barbs on it, and if you got to go tromping through bushes after your dogs, it's not going to be a fun experience at all. So
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, before we go into the next part, I want to hear about some bucks you killed. I want to talk about the Tricer LP panhead, 4.3 ounces, the smoothest panhead on the market. This thing is incredible. If you are a Western big game hunter and you are glassing with 85 millimeter and down, this thing is built for you. Or you can be Cade, you can use BTX on it. So it's
yeah,
guys are running bigger stuff on it all the time. But definitely for like guys running the 15s, the 10s, the 12s, 65 millimeters, 85 millimeter spotters, this panhead is the best Western panhead now, and I think that's been proven this year by us never being able to keep them in stock because we just keep selling them as fast as we bring them in. So I
definitely.
picked up the Tricer LP.
They're amazing. I love those actually. We have 3 or 4 sets of them. I think three. Um, but everybody that I've ever shown it to has wanted to figure out how to get one, and they love them. They're pretty sweet.
So, with that said, tell me about like your favorite buck you've shot in Mexico, or favorite hunt you've been on.
Um,
Nothing in Mexico, anything. I don't care where it was, but tell me your favorite buck.
yeah. So for me, it's difficult. We've hunted a lot of really cool deer. I'd say one of the coolest deer that we've had the opportunity down there to hunt. I actually it's that buck I was talking about earlier. I hunted him 2 seasons ago, and so I hunted him really hard, and I unfortunately was unable to get him killed. But that year when we went to January, excuse me, in November to set up all these cameras, we're driving between water holes to where we're setting, and in the middle of the day, seriously, 5 feet from the side of the road while we're driving is this buck jumps up, and he just darts across the road, and we're able to see him for 3, 4, 5 seconds, and that's it. But he jumps across the road, and when he jumps across the road, where he goes right into this super thick stuff again, and we lose track of him, can't see him. But in that 3, 4, 5 seconds, I remember looking at my dad, and it was just silence. And this buck, we flat out, he was the biggest buck I'd ever seen. My dad's seen some pretty big deer, but for me personally, that was absolutely the biggest buck I'd ever seen in person. And over the next couple weeks, we did that, and then we've set all these cameras, and then we go home. And it was like it's a month later now that we get to go back and hunt. So during that whole month, we've been talking about this buck, and he's got a cheater off of his right and his left G2. He just super massive, super long beam, super wide. Everything that we were talking about this buck was just absolutely giant. And so we, whatever, just go back into the hunt and nothing. We'll look at deer and no, that's not that buck. That's not that buck. That's not that buck. And we get into later in the season. We get into like the last half of the season, and we find this buck on camera, and it's just one picture, and it is just this giant buck, perfectly typical. I mean, very, very little, like just super massive. Everything about this buck is huge. So I pretty much abandoned the buck that I was hunting, which even at the time was like a 110, 112 inch buck, got a double main beam, lots of trash coming off of him. Super cool buck that I was hunting.
So for people who
But
don't know, what Boone and Crockett is 110, correct?
Boone and Crockett has to net 110, correct? Yeah.
And then non-typical has to be 120.
I'm not 100% sure what I think it's 120. I'm not 100% sure what non-typical is off the top of my head.
Okay. People might not understand if you don't hunt Coues deer, like if you're from the out east or you hunt up north.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds small. Like the
Yeah.
normal Coues deer you're seeing running around, like in Arizona, is probably the 70 to 90 inch range. And you'd be
Yeah.
stoked to shoot a 90 inch buck. 110
Yeah.
inch buck is one of these bucks that you're,
Yeah.
hunt a lifetime for.
Yeah.
129 inch buck is like a 240 inch buck. It's a giant buck.
It's a big deer. We actually, let me grab this really fast. We got, I got sheds I can show you. This is so this, obviously everybody's going to know, is a giant mule deer. One of the biggest mule deer sheds we've found. And that's a really big mule deer. However, this is a really big Coues deer.
Wow.
And that's a really big size difference. But both of these deer are a similar caliber of deer. They're just it's a different species. So it's a little bit more challenging to, look at some of these deer. And I don't know, you look at a big mule deer and you can tell that that's just a giant frame. But Coues deer sometimes, to inexperienced hunters, a 90-inch buck, they'll confuse a 90-inch buck with a 105-inch deer just because it's difficult sometimes.
So you're looking for a big. I'm sorry, we're off topic of your deer, but like big eye guards got to make you just go crazy, right? Like I love big eye guards like Coues deer. I love how
Yeah.
I love KG. I like wrapping in. And I
Yeah.
love big 4-inch eye guards. They get some gnarly eye guards on them.
Yeah, the second buck I ever shot is that buck that I shot at 9 yards with that 300 rum, and he has a 7-inch eye guard and an 8-inch eye guard,
That's awesome.
and it's
And these
super
deer only
cool.
weigh like 95 pounds. I mean, 90 pounds. They're light, so that's a huge eye guard for a little buck.
Yeah, we actually on our ranch down there, we actually have really big deer, like big bodied deer. And so we get a few 110 kind of pounds, but
Oh wow.
that's on the high end. So they're definitely bigger down there. I'm not 100% sure why, but just kind of are, I guess.
Not as many guys driving around side by side chasing them, making them get exercise. That's why.
Yeah, definitely for
Just
sure.
getting fat in those bushes. Don't have to run. Don't do so many
Yeah.
hills down there. Our bucks are all
Hmm.
up in Sky Islands in Arizona. All right, keep
Yeah.
going. Sorry.
So anyway, yeah. So this buck, I hunted him. I hunted hard that last half of the season. I went several days not seeing a single deer, and this buck kept coming in. Yeah, because I was getting there probably a half hour before light, and then leaving at like 15 minutes to a half hour after it's dark. Like I was sitting there, and I would sit in like looking through the scope, like until I could not see anything. That it was not an option. There was no way I was going to be able to shoot something. And so, but he was coming in. I mean, seriously, at one point he came in like 8 minutes after I left, and it was dark. Like there was nothing I could have done, but I kept missing this buck, and so I ended up going home that year empty-handed. Which when you're hunting these giant deer, that's just kind of how it happens. But
Do you name them?
next year,
Do you name your
yeah,
bucks?
actually, yeah, we do. It's hard because we got right now we got probably 25 deer over 110 that we're trying to keep track of, and
Oh,
so
jeez.
on these ranches, and so it's really difficult to just keep track of them without naming them. So this buck, actually, we named him Big Mac. He just he's just giant buck, and I'm not 100% sure why we named him that. Sometimes they have really significant names, and sometimes they are just funny. um, but this buck, we're hunting him, and I went home empty handed. Come back the next year, and we kind of rotate who has first dibs on some of these deer. And so my dad was like, you know what? He hadn't shot anything in 3 years going down there. He'd been sitting just for elite bucks, and he was like, I'm going to go after this buck. He's like, I want this buck, and he goes down there and he sits. We get through December, and he's completely nocturnal. Can't hunt him. Well, we hunt him, but he doesn't come in. Weren't able to get him killed. I'm hunting a buck at this time, and we're hunting a buck we called ceja, which is Spanish for eyebrow, and because he lives on this this kind of ridge that they called the yellow ridge or the yellow eyebrow. So Amarillo ceja, and so we started calling him ceja because that's where he lived. And so I was hunting this buck, and he's super cool. Got a bunch of trash, and he's like a mid 120s kind of buck as well. So, I was perfectly happy. I'm still hunting an absolute bomber of a buck, and so my dad actually 2-3 days into January, or excuse me, 2-3 days into the December hunt, he there's the camera is up closer to the water, but there's a tree in between it, but the camera and the blind. And so This buck comes in and he doesn't drink, but he comes in and he gets his picture taken less than 100 yards from where my dad's sitting. And and then he literally just walks straight across. And so you can only see him like for less than a second. And that was the whole window, is you got less than a second and this buck's gone. And so, when you're sitting in your chair all day and it's less than a second to reach up, you got to put your earplugs on and you got to get on the gun and make it happen. Obviously, this buck didn't get killed that day. So this buck's now he's been really difficult. We ended up a few days later, getting close to last light. This buck, a doe comes in and it's drinking water, and he can see. There's actually a video of it, but he can see just between two trees, like threading a needle. You can barely see his front shoulder, and you can see his head. And the rifle my dad's shooting is a 308 with a giant barrel on it. He wants absolutely no kick. We call it the blind gun because it's a 308 that kicks like a pellet gun. And so he built this rifle to be just super, super heavy. And so he super flat shooting rounds, super heavy, and he just threads it right through. And the buck jumps up, turns around, and falls over dead. And we got a bunch of good video of him getting up to it, seeing this buck, and it's the biggest buck we've been able to kill down there. We've actually got the horns with the tag still on it, but it's ended up 129 and change was the gross score, and 125 and change was the net score, and that's officially scored from Boone and Crockett, and it just is an absolute giant buck, and it's probably going to be the biggest we kill on our ranch for a few years for sure. But he's not
if I have anything to say about it,
buck.
But
yeah,
it is awesome.
I hope so.
That is awesome,
you do
man.
kill a bigger one. That'd be sweet.
So that buck, and the crazy thing is, like you said, that one buck you shot had 9-inch eye guards or 8-inch eye guards.
Yeah.
That buck there only has it has a lot of mass, but it only has 4 or 5-inch eye guards.
Yeah.
It's so funny how we killed a buck one time, and I think it might have been a 3x3, but it was old. I mean, the teeth were gone.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't have a big frame, but he had 6 or 7-inch eye guards. It was just the coolest buck. It was just so weird. All of his growth was in his eye guards, not his antlers. It was funny.
Yeah. This buck, he's actually it's hard, just looking at just the horns, but this sheds off a 110-inch deer, and it just absolutely dwarfs it. And, it's not even close, but, it's tough with these deer. It pictures and video, it just doesn't do him justice. You got to see him in person, but it's, he's a cool buck. That's definitely one of the coolest bucks that I've had the opportunity to hunt. And even though I didn't kill him, he's still, probably the coolest buck that I've been able to get after. So.
Yeah, I think definitely if you're listening to this podcast, you need to go on YouTube and watch the video because that buck is insane.
Yeah, he's a cool buck.
Insane.
He's a super good buck. We're hoping this year we can have some bucks in that caliber, but it's still up in the air. We'll find out here pretty quick. So
something big is going to die down there. There's enough people going. It'll be fun. So I don't think you're having any trouble filling hunts. But after saying you have 25 bucks over 110 on the ranch, you should have no trouble.
That's our personal ranch. We got a bunch of other ranches. The personal ranch we've hunted for over 10 years, and we've managed it and ran our cameras and predator control and all that good stuff. The other ranches, unfortunately, we can't manage all of them to that same caliber, but we're trying to give people the tools that they can be able to manage these ranches at that caliber. We want to do it yourself hunts. Sometimes guided hunts are tough. You get out, we've tried hunting back east, and you get out there and the guide basically just puts you in a field and, hey, you're going to sit here and hopefully a buck comes in. And that's a lot of fun. But then you start getting there, and they sold more tags than they have big deer, and it's just tough. And so we want do it yourself kind of stuff, and basically get people set up on these ranches so that they can and give them all the information and stuff that we've done in the past, so that if that's what they're interested in and that's what they're wanting to do, that they can be able to get these ranches and hunt them year after year and chase these giant deer every single year. And so it's definitely a lot of fun. But we got pictures to prove it, all of our big bucks and what we've done in the past years, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of self control.
Well,
Yeah,
you were
but
telling me,
it's
or
definitely doable.
maybe your dad was telling me that something like in 15 years he's killed 12 bucks over 110 and two over 120,
Yeah,
something like
so
that.
he's yeah, so and that's all off of that same ranch. So that's all off of the same ranch, and that's over the years we've just learned how to manage it better, learned how to manage the predators, learn how to manage all of the everything the best that we can, and just not shoot small deer. Everybody's kind of guilty of um, trying to guess something because they want it to be bigger, and so they're guessing score and they'll get ground shrinkage, and we try not to do that. It's a lot easier said than done, but we really, really try to focus on shooting mature deer. And so one of the first things we'll look at is their body and, their head and, is this a mature deer? And there's a bunch of different things you can look at. But if, a 110 immature or 110-inch immature deer is going to be a absolute giant mature buck. And so that's what we try to strive for is nothing but mature bucks. And so it's been really beneficial for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty unheard of. I'm excited to go down and hunt with you guys. Um, where can we find you guys? What are you guys about?
So we're on social media right now. Mad Hunts. We're working on progressing with that. My Instagram is Kade.madhunts, and excuse me, Kade Mad Hunts. But we're working right now. We're still really new, but we're trying to get our website up. It's going to be up here pretty quick. Working on getting more of the YouTube and that stuff going. But right now, probably social media is going to be the best way to get a hold of us. We also, if anybody's wanting to come hunt Coues deer, or we do have mule deer tags. But this year we've got a few Coues deer tags left for this season. So if anybody's wanting to, we can definitely get somebody set up to hunt down there for this coming season. But I mean, you can text me, call me, get with me on social media, and we can get you guys down there.
So you have, I thought you guys were all booked up. So you have some tags this season, and you're
So
typically hunting these guys
we've
in
got a couple,
January,
yeah.
or
So actually, that's the crazy part is the season technically runs from sometime in November through like the first week of February.
okay.
So on these ranches, there's some other guys going to these ranches. So we've got a couple tags left for this season. But like as long as it works with the ranch owner's schedule as well as the schedule of the other hunts, then we could get somebody down there December or January. But typically the rut and stuff in January is better. So that the middle of January typically is going to be your best bet. But I know a lot of guys really like the early December season, because the bucks you can still kind of catch them before they get nocturnal. So it's kind of give and take, depends on what you're wanting to do and what your schedule looks like.
Awesome. So if you guys want to go hunt with Mad Hunts, hit up Kate on
Yeah.
Instagram, message me, or I'll get you in touch with him. I'll get your cell phone number, or hit him up and get his cell phone number. I'm excited for what you guys are doing. I think it's neat the way you guys are regulating, managing bucks. I am sorry for everybody for my 4-year-old coming in the room 16 times. I never should have gave him the first candy. It's like a seagull. There you go. Thank you, Dylan. Yeah, go on Instagram. and find Kade, find me. We'll get you down there with them, and go to Mexico, go on a hunt, and
Yeah.
shoot some bucks.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if anything else, just have the adventure. But with that
Absolutely. We
said,
actually, real quick, sorry, we're also on Outfitter Services is another. It's a website that we're also on. He's a super good connection to have. He promotes hunts all over the world, and he's sort of like Airbnb, but for hunts. And so you can pick what kind of hunts you want to do. It gives you the price, gives you the layout, gives you all the options to figure that out. We are on there as well. I just want to throw that out there. I mentioned that. That can be super helpful as well.
awesome. Well, dude, I am super excited. I hope I can do a hunt with you before we go to Mexico. Hope I can hunt with you over here a little bit too, stateside. We were talking about
Yeah,
that. So
absolutely.
let's see if we can pull that off. And thanks for coming on, dude. People are going to love this. Love to hear about
Yeah,
these deer.
I'm super excited.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
dude.
I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
I'll talk to you later.